Before these machines, felling a single giant fir could swallow an entire day of two men dragging a crosscut saw back and forth until their arms gave out. Then came a tool so loud, so violent, so transformative that it rewrote the map of an entire continent's forests. It spat oil, screamed like a banshee, and did the work of 5 men. These are the 10 chainsaws that didn't just cut trees, they built North America's timber industry. Let's begin. Number 1. The Stihl two-man gasoline saw. Our story doesn't start in the forests of Oregon or the timber camps of British Columbia. It starts in a workshop in Stuttgart, Germany. In 1926, an engineer named Andreas Stihl built an electric chainsaw for cutting logs in mill yards. A brute of a machine that weighed roughly 140 pounds and needed 2 men just to wrangle it. 3 years later, in 1929, he patented something far more important: a gasoline-powered tree-felling machine, the Type A. It produced about 6 horsepower and tipped the scales at around 100 pounds. Still a 2-man monster, but now it could be carried into the woods, untethered from any power line. Here's why this matters for North America. By 1931, Stihl was exporting saws across the Atlantic, and a Vancouver entrepreneur named D.J. Smith became his North American distributor. In the very first place these German saws bit into North American timber was the Bloedel, Stewart and Welch logging camp at Franklin River on the British Columbia coast. Loggers were skeptical. The early saws were heavy, temperamental, and spat fuel and oil everywhere. But the productivity was undeniable. Stihl wasn't entirely alone in those early years either. In 1927, a Hamburg engineer named Emil Lerp founded Dolmar and developed his own gasoline chainsaw, the Dolmar Model A, and is often credited with mass-producing the world's first petrol-powered chainsaw. And the very idea of a portable chainsaw traces back even further, to a 1918 patent by a Canadian millwright named James Shand. Shand let his rights lapse, and the design was later developed by the German firm that became Festo. So the technology that would define North American logging was, fittingly, a tangled web of German and Canadian invention from the very beginning. The later Stihl BDN model, built in 1938, became the template that an entire generation of North American manufacturers would copy, quite literally. Once World War II cut off the supply of German saws, the Stihl two-man machine was the seed. Everything that follows in this list grew out of the moment North American loggers first heard that engine roar and realized the age of the crosscut saw was ending. Number 2. The Mahle two-man saw. When World War II severed the pipeline of German chainsaws, North America faced a problem and an opportunity. The continent needed staggering amounts of timber for the war effort, and it could no longer import the tools to harvest it. Loggers were even exempted from the draft because their work was considered that essential. Into this gap stepped American manufacturers, and one of the most important was the Mahle Tool Company. Mahle was founded around 1921 by Arthur W. Mahle, first in Milwaukee and then in Chicago, building portable electric, pneumatic, and gas-powered tools, grinders, drills, and flexible shaft equipment. By the 1940s, the company was producing rugged 2-man chainsaws from a factory in Crete, Illinois. Models like the Mahle Model 6 and Model 7 became workhorses of wartime and post-war logging. They were heavy, built like tanks, and powerful enough that a single 2-man Mahle crew could fell roughly 50% more timber in a day than 2 men sawing by hand. What makes Mahle historically significant isn't just the saws themselves, it's what they represented. The wartime industrial boom created exactly the kind of advanced manufacturing infrastructure that made chainsaws cheaper and easier to mass produce. Mahle was part of that first homegrown wave that proved North America didn't need German imports to mechanize its forests. The company's legacy didn't end with its own name either. In 1956, Mahle was sold to Remington Arms, and its chainsaw line was reborn as the Remington Chainsaw brand, a name that would go on to put gas saws into the hands of countless American homeowners and small loggers for decades. The Mahle was the bridge between the imported 2-man era and the all-American industry that was about to explode, and the timing could not have been more critical. The United States needed enormous quantities of raw material to fight World War II, and in the Pacific Northwest, the most valuable resource of all grew tall and green. Timber-framed barracks built crates and ships and underpinned the entire war machine. With so many men in uniform, the government even exempted loggers from the draft to keep the timber flowing. Saws like them all weren't just commercial products. For a few crucial years, they were instruments of national survival. Number 3. The Mercury-Disston two-man saw. If you want to understand how deeply the chainsaw rewired American industry, look at the Disston name. Henry Disston founded his saw works in Philadelphia in 1840, and by the early 20th century, the Tacony factory had become the largest saw manufacturer in the entire world. 8,000 employees, 300 acres, and the distinction of casting some of the first crucible saw steel ever made in the United States. For a century, Disston meant hand saws and crosscut saws, the very tools the chainsaw was about to make obsolete. So Disston did something clever. Rather than be left behind, it joined the revolution. During and after World War II, Disston partnered with Mercury, the marine engine company built by Carl Kiekhaefer, to produce two-man chainsaws. It was a marriage of strengths. Disston brought a century of expertise in cutting steel and saw geometry. Mercury brought powerful, reliable two-stroke engines. The result was machines like the Mercury-Disston KB7 Boy, a 12-horsepower two-man saw that could chew through the biggest timber a crew could throw at it. Some of these early Disston saws used an unusual straddle chain that rode on the outside of the bar, rather than running in a groove. That design eventually lost out to the slotted bar approach, still used today, but it shows just how much experimentation was happening as engineers raced to perfect the tool. The Mercury-Disston saw is a perfect symbol of an industry in transition, one of America's oldest and proudest steel-cutting dynasties, strapping a marine engine to its expertise and diving headfirst into the power saw age. It didn't survive the consumer chainsaw boom that followed, but for a crucial decade, it helped keep North American timber flowing. Number 4. The IEL Beaver and Super Pioneer. Now we cross into Canada, where one of the single most important leaps in chainsaw history happened. Industrial Engineering Limited, IEL, was founded in Vancouver, British Columbia, in 1939, and in 1946, IEL produced what chainsaw historians widely credit as the world's first one-man gasoline chainsaw, the Beaver. This was the breakthrough everyone had been chasing. Every saw before it needed 2 operators. The Beaver could be run by a single logger, and that changed the entire economics of the woods overnight. Its successor, the Model AB Pioneer of 1948 to 1950, weighed about 28 pounds, produced roughly 4 horsepower, and used a roller chain reduction drive to multiply torque because these early engines ran at only around 4,000 RPM compared to the 13,000 plus of modern saws. IEL became the dominant force in Pacific Northwest logging and is recognized as the oldest chainsaw manufacturer in North America, as the direct forerunner of Pioneer Saws Limited. In 1956, the American giant Outboard Marine Corporation bought IEL, and in 1958 moved production east to Peterborough, Ontario, where the Pioneer brand was built alongside Evinrude and Johnson outboard motors. The Pioneer name kept selling saws until and IEL was just one piece of a booming Canadian industry. The same wartime cutoff of German saws spawned a whole cluster of British Columbia manufacturers. DJ Smith, who had been Stihl's North American distributor, started building the Timberhog two-man saw, a close cousin of the Stihl design. Another Vancouver firm, Power Machinery Limited, jumped into the market in 1947 and had sold nearly 18,000 saws by 1950, more than half of them its popular Wood Boss model. Power Machinery even built a one-man saw called the Canadian, specifically to crack the lucrative pulpwood market in Quebec, and the marketing worked beautifully. Canada had transformed from a single wartime entrepreneur copying German designs into a global chainsaw powerhouse, and the one-man saw, born in Vancouver, became the standard for the entire world. Number 5. The McCulloch 549 and 325. If the IEL Beaver opened the door to the one-man saw, McCulloch kicked it off its hinges and let everyone walk through. Robert Paxton. McCulloch founded his company in 1943 in Milwaukee, building small two-stroke engines and superchargers. His real genius, though, was manufacturing. McCulloch had mastered die-casting lightweight magnesium and aluminum skills honed making aircraft superchargers, and he aimed that expertise straight at the chainsaw. In 1948, the company built its first saw, and in March 1949 it released the Model 549. a two-man saw delivering 5 horsepower at just 49 pounds, lighter and more powerful than any competing two-man machine on the market, with a body of die-cast magnesium. But the 549 was just the opening act. Later that same year came the model that genuinely revolutionized the industry, the McCulloch 325. The name tells the whole story. 3 horsepower, 25 pounds. It was the lightest one-man chainsaw in the world at the time. And for the first time, a tool that had been strictly for professional loggers became something a single private landowner or farmer could realistically buy and handle. McCulloch had cracked open an entirely new consumer market. And here's a crucial piece of context that supercharged every saw of this era. In 1947, a logger and inventor named Joseph Buford Cox watched a timber beetle larva chew effortlessly through a stump in Oregon, its C-shaped jaws cutting side to side instead of scratching straight ahead. Cox copied that design in Stihl, creating the chipper chain and founding the Oregon Saw Chain Corporation. He started in the basement of his Portland home with just 4 employees and sold $300,000 worth of chain in the first year alone. It cut faster, dulled slower, and replaced the old scratcher chains across the entire industry. Pair a McCulloch with an Oregon chain, and suddenly 7 chainsaws could do the work that once took 16 fallers and 40 buckers. The math of logging had been rewritten forever. McCulloch, meanwhile, just kept pushing. In 1958, the firm became the McCulloch Corporation, and in 1964, Robert McCulloch built a sprawling new manufacturing complex on raw desert land in Arizona, the place that became Lake Havasu City, which he later made famous by buying the old London Bridge, shipping it across the ocean stone by stone and reassembling it there. On the product side, the 1968 PowerMac 6 was billed as the world's lightest chainsaw, and the 1972 Mini-Mac brought an affordable saw to casual homeowners. McCulloch had done something no one else managed quite so completely. It turned the chainsaw from a specialized industrial tool into a household name. Number 6. The Homelite Model 20 MCS. The next giant came from the most unexpected background imaginable. A company that started by lighting up rural farmhouses. Homelite was founded in 1921 by Charles H. Ferguson in Port Chester, New York, as the Home Electric Lighting Company. Its specialty was lightweight portable gasoline generators. And during World War II, Homelite built tens of thousands of auxiliary power units for military aircraft like the B-17 and B-24, and for the Sherman tank, earning the Army-Navy E Award 4 times. After the war, Homelite turned its lightweight engine expertise toward the chainsaw. Its first saw, in 1946, was electric, but the real milestone arrived in 1949 with the Model 20 MCS, the motorized chainsaw, a gas-powered, 2-stroke, one-man machine. Homelite has long held the distinction of producing what many consider the world's first true one-man chainsaw for the mass market. A claim that sits right alongside Canada's IEL Beaver in the great debate over who got there first. By the mid-1960s, Homelite had grown into one of the largest chainsaw manufacturers on Earth, with a lineup running from small brush cutters to the most advanced professional logging saws. A company born to bring electric light to dark rural farms had become a titan of the timber industry, and it was only getting started, as we'll see in a moment. Number 7. The Stihl Contra. While North American companies were battling for the one-man market, the original pioneer back in Germany delivered the single most influential chainsaw of the 20th century. In 1959, Stihl released the Contra, and it set a standard the entire industry still follows. The Contra solved a problem that had quietly limited every saw before it. Early chainsaws used float-style carburetors that only worked in one orientation. Tip the saw to fell a tree instead of bucking a log, and the fuel flow would die and choke the engine. The Contra featured an all-position diaphragm carburetor, sometimes called an aviator carburetor, that worked at any angle. Combined with a gearless, direct-drive design and a chipper-tooth chain, it could be swung freely into any cutting position without missing a beat. The numbers were stunning for 1959. The Contra produced 6 horsepower, weighed just 12 kilograms, about 26.5 pounds, and spun up to 7,000 RPM. Stihl claimed it boosted forestry productivity by a full 200%, and loggers found it hard to argue. In North America, the saw was sold under the name Lightning, and demand from the United States and Canada surged so sharply that Stihl opened its first North American warehouses to keep up. The Contra's influence didn't stop there. In 1965, Stihl added an anti-vibration system to it, a comfort and safety innovation that would eventually become standard on every chainsaw made. And the commercial impact on Stihl itself was explosive. The company's workforce roughly doubled from around 640 employees in 1959 to more than 1,500 by 1969, and production climbed from about 100 saws a day to 500 a day within just 5 years. The Contra's success transformed Stihl from a recovering post-war firm into a global juggernaut, and since 1971, Stihl has been the world's top-selling chainsaw brand. Nearly every saw in the woods today carries the Contra's DNA. Number 8. The Homelite XL-12. For all the progress of the 1950s, professional chainsaws were still heavy beasts. Then, in 1963, Homelite changed everything again with a saw whose name was a flex written right on the housing, the XL-12. The 12 stood for the weight of the powerhead, a mere 12 pounds. This was the world's first genuinely lightweight professional chainsaw, and the secret was a magnesium alloy crankcase that slashed weight without sacrificing toughness. Under the hood sat a 54 cubic centimeter, two-cycle loop-scavenged engine producing 3.3 horsepower and spinning up to 8,000 RPM, able to run bars from 12 to 24 inches. It hit a sweet spot of power, weight, and durability that no saw had quite managed before. The XL-12 became one of the most recognizable and beloved chainsaws ever built. It stayed in production for an astonishing 25 years, all the way until 1988, which tells you everything about how right Homelite got the formula. Loggers trusted it, weekend woodcutters loved it, and it became such a cultural fixture that it even achieved a strange kind of fame in horror cinema, showing up in cult films like The Evil Dead and its sequels. But beyond the pop culture footnote, the XL-12 mattered because it democratized professional-grade cutting. A 12-pound powerhead meant less fatigue, more cuts per day, and the ability to work in positions that a heavier saw made dangerous or impossible. It pushed the entire industry toward the lightweight, high-power-to-weight philosophy that still defines chainsaw design. When you pick up a modern saw and marvel at how light and nimble it feels, you're holding the legacy of the Homelite XL-12. Number 9. The Big Bore Faller's Saws. Not every tree could be felled by a featherweight saw. In the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest, loggers faced Douglas firs and redwoods so massive that they demanded a completely different class of machine, the big-bore professional saw, built for raw, brutal cutting power. These were the monsters that brought down the giants, and they deserve their own place on this list. The standard-bearer for American big-bore saws was McCulloch's professional line, including the legendary SP-120. This was a high-displacement powerhouse designed for the heaviest commercial logging, and it earned its reputation in the field and on the stage. The SP-125 was a fixture in professional logging competitions throughout the 1990s. It also featured vibration isolation, a meaningful step toward reducing the bone-deep fatigue and long-term injury that came from running a screaming engine for 10 hours a day. McCulloch wasn't alone in this arena. Stihl's large displacement saws, including monsters in the 0799 family, and Homelite's big professional models like the 2100 series competed for the same demanding customers. The West Coast fallers, who measured trees in feet of diameter, not inches. These saws were heavy, loud, and thirsty, but they had the torque to pull a long bar through several feet of solid old-growth wood without bogging down. A faller might spend an entire morning working a single tree, dropping a wedge and listening for the crack, and only a big-bore saw could deliver that kind of sustained brute force hour after hour. This big-bore class is in many ways the saw that literally built the modern timber economy of the West. The lumber that framed millions of post-war North American homes, the plywood and pulp that fueled an entire construction boom, much of it fell to these high-horsepower professional saws. They represented the muscle end of the spectrum, the counterpoint to the lightweight revolution, and together those two philosophies covered every job the forest could throw at a logger. Without them, the great Douglas firs and coastal redwoods simply could not have been harvested at the pace the post-war economy demanded. Number 10. The Modern Professional Era. Our final entry isn't a single saw, but the modern professional lineage that carried the industry into the present, and at its center stands Husqvarna. The Swedish manufacturer surged into North American logging from the 1970s onward, building professional saws renowned for their balance, ergonomics, and advanced anti-vibration systems, for decades, the rivalry between Husqvarna and Stihl has driven relentless innovation. And walk onto any professional job site today, and you'll find loggers fiercely loyal to one camp or the other. This modern era is defined as much by safety as by power. The anti-vibration system that Stihl first fitted to the Contra in 1965 became universal, sparing loggers from the crippling nerve damage of white finger. The chain brake, Stihl's quick stop being a landmark example, added a safety device that can stop a spinning chain in a fraction of a second, dramatically reducing the carnage of kickback injuries that plagued the early decades. Then came the leap into electronics. In 2019, Stihl introduced the MS500i, the first mass-produced chainsaw with electronic fuel injection. No carburetor at all, just precise digital fuel control for instant starts and consistent power. And from the late 2010s onward, battery-powered cordless saws have stormed the market, offering near-gas performance with zero emissions, near-silent operation, and no fuel mixing, a quiet revolution that would have been unthinkable to a 1929 logger wrestling a 100-pound two-man machine. Brushless motors and lithium-ion batteries have pushed these cordless saws to within striking distance of small gas models, and for many tree care professionals and homeowners, they've already become the saw of choice. Consider just how far the technology traveled. The first Stihl saw of 1926 weighed around 140 pounds and needed 2 strong men and an electrical cable. Today's professional saw weighs a handful of kilograms, starts at the press of a button or the squeeze of a trigger, stops its chain in milliseconds if it kicks back, and sips fuel under computer control. From German imports to Canadian one-man pioneers, from American mass production to lightweight icons and electronic injection precision, this final generation closes a remarkable circle, the endless pursuit of a saw that is lighter, faster, safer, and smarter than the one before it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the machines that shaped our world, let me know in the comments which of these saws surprised you the most. And if your family has its own chainsaw story, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.